Hello everyone, Cowbunger here, and welcome back to Moveset Analysis, where we take a look at a character from a crossover platform fighting game and see how well their moveset and other attributes represent them. I will suggest changes if I feel like they are needed and give a rating on the design at the end of the video. In the last episode, we covered Peach, and she was the best moveset design we have covered so far. Now we are going to move on to a guy who can introduce himself.
Who are you?
I am Steve.
This will not be the last Minecraft movie appearance in this video. I apologize. Mr. Minecraft himself, Steve, is the default avatar you use when you play Minecraft. As you can imagine, you can do a bit of mining and some crafting in Minecraft. Along with that, you can explore vastly different areas with enemies you can fight with swords and other weapons. Minecraft is an endearing adventure game that has captured the hearts and imaginations of so many people, young and old alike. Steve's inclusion was inevitable, and it broke Twitter when it actually happened. I'd say that Steve himself doesn't actually reflect the warm feelings people have for his game. I feel like we should talk about that later though. We are here to talk about Steve's moveset and not so much his impact on the game he's in, for as interesting as it is. So let's get started. Let us first go over Steve's stats, attributes, and any gimmicks he has to see if they need changed. Steve's character stats are some of the worst in the game overall. He has below average movement speed on the ground and in the air. He has a slightly below average weight. He is actually a bit floaty, but there's good reasons for that. And he has the worst jump height in the game, especially with his first jump. His air jump is not the worst, but some of the worst air jumps belong to characters with multiple jumps, so Steve's overall is still probably the worst. He has no special attributes or gimmicks with his movement, but where he has insane strengths is in his moveset. I feel like that's how things should be. It really comes down to this. Here we have a dude made of cubes that can't bend his knees. And here we have an actual human being skilled in swordplay. Which one do you think should be jumping higher, running faster, etc.? Even in this roster, Steve is an oddity that does not look like he can do anything better than most other characters around him, at least at a surface level. Steve's whole thing is that he adapts to his surroundings and builds himself up to fight greater challenges through crafting. His crafting table is his main gimmick, but since it's linked with neutral special, we will get to it when we get to it. I feel like these stats fit well, and they do not need to be changed. Next, for his moveset, we are starting with something that is unique to Steve and Mega Man. His jab is a one-hit swing of his sword. The fun part is that you can move around during this move. It's similar to Mega Man, where this is also technically his forward tilt and neutral air, and you can move around freely when doing your jab. With Steve, you can even jab while moving backwards. Mega Man can't do that. Because of this, Steve has some decent space control. I say decent because the range on his sword swing is just alright. It's not beating most other disjoints. You can also get hit in between swings as well, but it is surprisingly hard to do that. If you hold the attack button, Steve will swing his sword rapidly, which means that you can actually chain this jab into itself if you move forward. This is actually pretty powerful against most of the roster, and affects fast fallers the most. Like seriously, this has to be one of the silliest touch of death combos in Smash history. I think I do have to address the elephant in the room being Steve's balance, and if that affects my rating for the end. This is one of those gray areas, but my philosophy on it is that if a move is good conceptually, but is executed in a way that makes the move too strong and in need of a nerf, then it won't affect my rating. I feel like Steve's jab needs to have some more end lag after consecutive swings so that you can't just carry opponents off the stage with it. But I wouldn't change how the move actually works. So basically, unless the move is getting an actual overhaul, I won't count it as a change. So jab, nair, and technically forward tilt are all safe.
Flint and steel
Is down tilt. How many of you got jump scared? Leave a comment and tell me if you hate me. But yeah. Steve leaves a multi-hit patch of fire on the ground that actually falls downward past the ledges, which inspires some creative edge guarding. It works great with his block building, which, yeah, spoilers, I'm not getting rid of that. I'm not going to get rid of this down tilt either. Here's a 2-for-1 special, up tilt and up air. Steve rapidly swings his axe over his head as long as you hold down the attack button. It is a great anti-air, and like his jab, You can move and jump around during the move. Again, I feel like this should stay the same, besides maybe some small balance adjustments. Dash attack is up next. Steve just steps forward and swings his pickaxe. I don't really know what else it would be, so it stays. Steve swings his sword as hard as he can for his forward smash. I like that this is a direct reference that perfectly fits into his moveset. It stays. Down smash has Steve use a lava bucket on both sides of him to turn his opponents into spicy
Lava chicken, yeah, it's tasty as hell.
oh mamacita. Are the references getting old yet? I hope not. Please keep watching the video. We have so much left to cover. Anyway, good down smash, I'm keeping it. Going into this video, one move I thought I'd have some criticism for is up smash. It just looked like the most made up, most arbitrary two flickies horseshit in Smash history. But then I did my research into Minecraft, and sure enough, you can craft and place magma blocks like Steve does here. So this move actually does make sense with context. I do think it's a good move functionality wise, having this long-lasting hitbox that denies the area above Steve, but leaves him wide open otherwise. I still don't like how the move looks. It's just goofy. Minecraft and Steve are pretty goofy all things considered, but I wanted to at least discuss an alternative. I looked through some weapons in Minecraft and I think the bow was one that people were surprised not to see part of Steve's moveset around the time of his reveal. I personally say good. There are plenty of bow and arrows in Smash already. The only other viable weapon or item I could see being used for an up smash is the trident. Now, having Steve just stab upwards isn't as appealing to me. I don't know if it would look impactful. It's not even accurate to what you do with it in Minecraft. In Minecraft, you just swing the trident, not stab with it. And for as faithful as this interpretation of Steve is, I think it'll feel wrong if we don't keep stuff as accurate as possible. There is another thing you can do with the trident though, and that's throw it. So maybe Steve could throw the trident over his head and then it could fall in an arc. Man, that sounds so fucking evil. Just giving Steve a projectile that falls downwards while he can build blocks off stage. Ooh, yeah, that sounds like a balancing nightmare. On top of that, if we are striving for accuracy, the trident actually comes back to the player like a boomerang in Minecraft. That type of thing feels like it should be a special move, not a regular move, so I'm gonna go ahead and be a coward and say that the trident is too crazy to implement and the magma block is probably fine to stay. Forward air is next. It's another simple move where Steve swings his pickaxe in front of him and it can spike if you hit it near the tip of the pickaxe. This move is nasty in Ultimate, but it's fine on paper and I'm keeping it. The anvil is incoming! Down air has Steve place an anvil at his feet and he falls with it. This is a Looney Tunes-esque attack, which kind of goes with some of the other goofy stuff this character does. If the anvil lands on the ground, you can stand on it for a couple seconds before it disappears. I'd say the only real good use of that is with flint and steel. One property that this move has that we haven't talked about yet is that if you don't have enough materials, the move just will not happen. For this move, you need one block of iron to do it. There are plenty of moves that are like this that I'll point out as we get to them. But in general, Steve has two resource management mechanics, and both are linked with Neutral B, so again, we'll get there. As a move, I think it's also crazy in Ultimate, but perfectly fine on paper, so it will stay. For Steve's last aerial, we have back air. This is another swing of his pickaxe. This time the move is more of a slow startup, high knockback finisher. I like it, it stays. Let's go over throws now. Steve uses a fishing rod to grab opponents, giving him extended grab range. I guess Steve needs it, all of his stats are bad, so throw him a bone with his grab range, it'll be fine. For his forward throw, Steve stands on top of a piston and it pushes the opponent forwards at a nasty angle. It's a fun throw, I'll keep it. Down throw has Steve throw the opponent to the ground and then an anvil will fall on them right after. Once again, the anvil requires one iron to appear, so if you don't have it, Steve just throws the opponents to the ground and they bounce up. This is Bugs Bunny approved and also Cowabunga approved. Back throw has Steve keep the opponent on the fishing rod and fling them backwards. The animation on this is satisfying to me, I don't know why. It stays. Finally, we have another throw involving the piston. This time, Steve puts the opponent on top of the piston and sends them upwards. Again, it's a fun throw, it can stay. Man, I'm actually getting this done pretty quickly. Oh, wait. That's because I haven't changed anything. We were in a similar situation with Peach, but the specials are where the perfect streak fell apart for her. Let's see if Steve meets the same fate. Steve's neutral special is one of the more complicated specials in Smash history. This is basically 3 moves in one. The first part of this move happens when you're on the ground and not near your crafting table. When you press and hold the special button, you start mining for materials on the ground. You can get a whole bunch of stuff. You can mine dirt, wood, stone, and iron. These materials can be used for 2 things, both involving his other 2 Neutral B functions. In the air, Neutral B is used to put a block under Steve. Not only that, you can move around and continuously place blocks as you go. The material the blocks are made of depend on what materials you have mined, which is shown by this meter. The blocks eventually disappear, and the time it takes for them to disappear depends on the material. Dirt is the fastest to disappear, and iron takes the longest. Your opponent can hit the blocks to make them disappear faster. The blocks can be used to prevent Steve from being juggled, since he is slow and floaty, or you can use them as obstructions when you mine, and you can even use them as an edge guarding tool. This move in concept is pretty broken, but the thing that makes it work is that it does not work near the edges of the 4 blast zones. But this move does allow for so much flexibility and is definitely fitting for Steve. The other use of neutral special is when you're near your crafting table. So along with materials used for blocks and some attacks, you also mine some special items. Those are gold, diamond, and redstone. Stone, iron, gold, and diamond can be used to craft better versions of your weapons. You start off with wood weapons, and as you mine you can swap out your wood weapons for whatever best material you have. So if you don't have gold or diamond but you do have a lot of iron, you can craft iron weapons and skip on stone upgrades. You will be forced to upgrade your weapon eventually because there is a durability system for Steve's weapons where they eventually break after being used long enough, like in Minecraft. You are not useless when you have no weapons. Steve just hits people with his rectangle nubs, I'll call them. He's much weaker this way, so unless you want to torture yourself, you should craft new weapons as soon as one breaks. Before I move on, I just want to say that the crafting table can actually be broken by the opponent, so it can't be used for a couple seconds. You can also press the shield and special button to teleport the crafting table from its current location to your location, which is a nice quality of life thing. I do wonder what it would be like if the crafting table was always at the center of the stage though. I feel like in a competitive sense that would work better, but the problem is that this is Smash Brothers, and not all stages have a center to them at all times. He has to be able to control where it is because of how weird some stages are just in general. It sure doesn't sound like I have any problems with how this move works, and that's because I don't. There are very little utility special moves in Smash, and this neutral special is one of the most unique of them all. On top of that, it perfectly captures the main aspects of Minecraft all in one move. You mine, you craft, and you build blocks and shit. It's the best. The only thing I feel like is missing is making armor for yourself. I don't know how exactly that should be handled though. So if you give armor increased weight, for example, and you get diamond armor, if you give the same multiplier as Steve gets to his damage when he has diamond weapons, which is a 1.35 multiplier, Steve's weight would go up to 124.2. For reference, that is in between Ganondorf and King Deity's weight, so Steve would basically become a super heavyweight character, and that sounds very scary. I feel like Steve's weight and overall survivability staying the same throughout the match is for the best. It would make sense for him to have armor, but it would also make Steve even harder to fight against. He basically has a reverse comeback mechanic where he gains damage multipliers if he mines and doesn't die. More on top of that is a little crazy. I think what's there just represents Minecraft well enough. Therefore, I think there's not a single aspect of this move I would change. Alright, let's move on to side special. Steve gets into a minecart, builds some tracks in front of him, and moves forward to deal damage. There's some cool properties to this move. Number 1, it requires 1 piece of iron to use the minecart, and 1 of any other material to build the tracks. That's, well, not fun. But this other stuff is. You can actually turn around during this move, though it takes a second. If you have redstone, you can significantly increase your speed and knockback at the start of the move. This move really helps Steve mitigate his weaknesses, and on top of that, it's just a stupid move. It's one of those moves that you can't do much about. And I haven't even gone into the fact that you can jump out of the minecart, and when you do, the minecart moves forward on its own until it halts to a stop. The thing about it is that it becomes a moving grab hitbox that goes through shields. What? And when somebody gets hit by the empty minecart, they get carried away and they gotta mash out like they're in a grab to get out of it. So you can turn this into a projectile that gives you instant stage control, and it can even carry opponents off the stage. It's like a 50-50 of whether you should shield it or not. Really, the only way to avoid the move altogether is to jump out of the way, but Steve also jumps out of the cart, so he can predict you to do that and meet you in the air to hit you. Overall, this is probably one of the most oppressive moves in the game. However, and this might start some riots, but I still wouldn't change this move on paper. Of course it needs some balancing adjustments. For example, a move like this should never be killing anybody. Maybe at super high percents, like 150 plus, but it should just be a burst option and a keep away projectile. Having 2 in 1 like that is more than enough utility for one move, and in no way, shape, or form should it be a kill move. I like this move, it's also very unique, and it being on a character with as bad stats as Steve, I think makes it acceptable. I could see the grab hitbox being able to be blocked. I think that would solve it being hard to deal with. I feel like that type of change is really towing the line on being a change in functionality, which I do count towards my rating. I don't personally feel like it does need to turn into a hit grab. I think the mashing should just be more effective in getting you out of the cart more quickly. Really, it should just be a minor inconvenience.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
One thing I try to do is not have my jokes suck butt.
You!
This video must be insufferable. If you're still here, tell me how you endured in the comments. TNT, here comes the dynamite. That's down special. Steve places a TNT block that can be hit to detonate. You can also hold down the special button to start a trail of redstone, and when you let go you add a pressure plate on the ground that can be stood on to detonate the TNT. Doing it this way increases the damage and knockback of the move, but of course requires redstone. The TNT block takes a certain chunk of material to use, just depending on what you have. You also take less knockback from the TNT block if you're the one to activate the pressure plate, which is a fun little mechanic. Again, I don't see anything wrong with this move, I will keep it as is. Finally, we have up special. You use the wings of Elytra and a firework to dash in the direction held and then glide to continue your momentum. Yes, Sakurai actually brought gliding back, just for Steve. That's kind of funny. You can damage someone at the start of the move, but Steve is left open afterwards. His movement while he glides can be hard to track, and it can be a surprisingly good recovery. Again, I have no problem with this move, and it stays. I can't believe I actually went through the whole moveset without making any changes. For as polarizing as Steve is, I figured I'd have some kind of change. There's still some chances left to stop Steve's perfect streak, first with his final smash. Steve uses a giant piston to bop anybody in his way, then a cutscene takes place. He teleports you to the world of Minecraft, specifically into a temple full of TNT, creepers, and zombies. You get a view from the outside of everything blowing up, and Steve just pops up eating a steak, which is really funny. This dude's Steve. He's supposed to just be a lifeless avatar character, and yet, in Smash he is recklessly driving minecarts and blowing shit up like it's a Michael Bay movie. A final smash like this gives Steve a sense of mischievousness that I appreciate. With that being said, and I think many people would agree, when I envisioned Steve's final smash, I thought it was going to be him taking you to
The Nether.
And from there I expected the Ender Dragon to be involved. Maybe it would breathe fire on any opponents that got hit by the initial piston, and I would have Steve riding on top of the dragon to still show some personality. I like my idea better for sure. I would change that, but I have said in the past that visual changes do not count towards my rating. In this case, that would just be a visual change. So Steve is still rated as perfect as of right now. We're almost done. Steve is on the precipice of being crowned our first perfect character in this series' history. Like with everyone else though, I want to cover the miscellaneous stuff characters have. For example, you guys remember when they removed Steve's meat? Truly, this is the saddest cut in Smash history. I'm sure the next Smash game will see many character cuts, potentially, but none will ever amount to the pain and suffering the world felt when they detached Steve's meat from his cold, lifeless nub. Anyway, Steve's got a cool entrance, great taunts. I specifically love the fact that he has a teabag, that's just brilliant. His other victory animations are great, and the best thing about Steve is that all of his costumes are completely different from one another. You can even play as a zombie and a very small Enderman. It's just very surreal stuff. I wouldn't change anything about it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now official. I do decree that Minecraft Steve has a perfect Super Smash Bros. Moveset. Now, whether or not that moveset was executed well is a completely different story. This is an interesting topic, and it shows that you can have a character that really comes together with their kit, but if that kit is overtuned and never addressed, people will have a completely different outlook on the character. We really did deserve one more balance patch for Smash Ultimate that addressed Steve and some other top tiers. I just feel bad for Steve. I really don't think he deserves to be the menace of competitive and casual play. But I must say, it is extremely funny that this is how things ended up. Steve being the most toxic character in the biggest Smash game is practically poetry. The Onion couldn't come up with satire that is as funny as this. Overall, I really love how Steve is just a self-explanatory character. You can tell from his move that he mines, he crafts, and he goes on dangerous adventures, but he has so much fun doing it. He captures what Minecraft is all about perfectly, and that's all you can really ask for, right?
No, we could ask for him not to have a playstyle for toddlers who eat glue sticks and their own boogers too.
Alright, be nice, bro. We still have many characters to look into as the series goes on, and not just from Smash Ultimate. We can cover any crossover platform fighting game, so if you guys have a request, drop it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching until the end, especially after all the Minecraft movie jokes thrown in here. Thank you to my channel members StreamU and EXO for your continued support, and thank you to Colby, a previous channel member, for suggesting Steve. My channel members get to have extra votes in which characters they want to see, which is why we went over Steve today. My channel members also get exclusive video and live stream content, access to regular videos one day early, emotes, and more. If you don't want to pay a subscription, then you can check out my Ko-fi page. I post art I make on there, and I also give access to the exclusive videos and live stream VODs to anybody who donates on the page. For the next moveset analysis, we covered the most polarizing character in Smash Ultimate. Now we move on to the second most polarizing character in Ultimate, Sonic the Hedgehog. I am really looking forward to this one. I'll see you all then. Bye.